Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 14 of Working From Home webinar series. Apologies for the slight delay in this one. We've had a few technical challenges, but we are almost there. But anyway, let's get on. So before I introduce my fabulous guest today, the title for today's webinar is, as you can see, Outreach for SEO in 2020, and this is all about how brands can effectively work with influencers, a world I don't really understand completely, in order to gain high authority links. So before I introduce my guest, let me begin by saying her camera is not working just yet, but hopefully it will be over the next few minutes. But I'm really delighted to welcome Sheri Scott. Sheri is a social media strategist. She's an outreach specialist for the McGarry Agency. She's an ideas machine, and above all, she is, let me use my new favorite phrase, a true digital multi-hyphenate. Sheri introduced me to that phrase yesterday, and since then I've bought the book. So Sheri, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself to begin with?
Of course. Hi everybody. I'm so sorry that you can't see my orange glow coming from the screen. Yeah, that's such a lovely introduction. I've been working with McGarry Fashion for quite a long time now. I wouldn't want to say the exact time, it might display my age. You know, I've got good genes on my side. But I basically started working with McGarry a long time ago, just simply when I realized how terrible outreach was within, like, across the board, doesn't matter what niche you're in. I would be getting emails when I started my blog about, can we get a link here, and can you talk about this subject there? And I realized that there was more people doing it terrible than they were doing it right. And I was studying communications before in university, and I would just be like a bit puzzled as to like how this cog that basically makes your website, makes you more visible and connects you to so many people, is so dependent on communication. And so that's when I started talking to Andrew and be like, let's talk. So that was how I actually started to get into outreach. And to be honest, I've never looked back, because the more I see, the more I can tell that it's getting done terribly throughout the world. So I'm here to help people like basically do better for not just the brands, but for the people who they're engaging as well.
Okay, that's fantastic, and I'm so pleased you're here, Sheri, because I'm an SEO guy, and I have to admit, I talk about outreach, but how is it really done, and how do you speak to influencers? How does all that begin? I know for you it's what you do day in, day out, but assume on this subject I'm really dumb. So I'm really hoping we can learn something today. I'm sure we will. So let's
okay, well, first of all, I would say that, like, I mean, you really need to separate what you're actually trying to do here, because there's the difference between an influencer and someone who is great for your SEO sometimes don't match up. Mm-hmm. So it's so first of all, you need to really look at the end goal of what you're wanting. Are you wanting the clout, or are you wanting to move the needle in your project? And so that's where it's all about, like really trying to encourage PR and SEO teams to work together for the greater goal. Because when you're engaging with influencers, it's a kind of different ballpark than when you were engaging with so-and-so, the editor of a publication. It is because they put themselves out online, and that's what they do for a living. You really need to make that an interpersonal connection and flatter them, essentially, and make sure that they know that you aren't just getting in touch with them because the internet is like this great piece of tech is scraped the internet. It's because I've looked at your website, and it's not just, like, again, one of these copy and paste templates of, oh, I saw your post blah blah blah, and that was blah blah blah. It's like, so robotic. And so I think that because people are putting themselves out online, they want a human to interact with them as well.
Absolutely. And some of that stuff we're going to pick up on more detail later on.
Yes.
In the next 30 minutes, especially, you know, that relationship between PR and SEO. We talk about it. Does it ever really happen? Probably not, from what I've seen. But yeah. But let me begin just by talking about links. You know, there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation about links. But in terms of inbound links or links coming into your website, you know, Gary Aish from Google has made it clear that they are still important. Google still uses PageRank. Google is desperately looking for EAT signals that are a reflection of expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. And a large part of this is reflected in who's talking about your brand and products, how authoritative are they, what are people saying about you, who's linking to you, what page are they linking from and to, and what's the nature of the link. There's so much to this to get right, isn't there, Sheri?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So just quickly moving through some more background on links. State of Link Building 2020. This was a report that came out recently with some quite incredible stats there. 69% of marketers believe that buying links positively impacts search rankings. And when questioned further, most people said that they can see results of positive increase within 1 to 3 months of links being acquired. 52% of marketers believe brand mentions impact organic search rankings. And around 46% of people were spending at least 10K annually on link building. And this survey was made up of nearly 400 respondents, the majority of who came from the UK. Do those figures resonate, Sheri?
Absolutely. I would say that, like, in general, 10K a year annually, like, but it's all about, I hate when I'm not interested in this sentence saying, like, buying links positively impacts your search rankings, because define buying links though. Yeah. I think that it's what it's all about, because I don't like the link buying approach. I look at it as that I'm engaging with websites and I'm paying for a service that is that they're going on and they're taking time out their day to, like, you know, update their site, and so I'm paying for a service. I think if you put it in the mindset of you're buying links, it's low quality. And so it's like, do you need budget to get links? Yes. But to get good links, yes, I would say. But it's all about how you go around it and making sure that they're the right quality in the right place at the right time. And also, even if you have a 10K budget per year, like, if you actually make more of an effort into developing strategy that is more akin to the person who you're reaching out to, and giving different copy examples or angle examples that would suit their brand messaging, you can no doubt get it, like, up to 50, 60, 70% off their rate card, because you're doing them a favor. So you really need to make it as easy as possible, but also, like, the sky's the limit. Don't just be, like, you know, getting this email and, like, from someone who's just got a list of, like, 10 websites that they own and saying, like, you know, here's this deal. It's like, well, that's obviously, like, not, I mean, each to their own, but it's not how I like to work.
So I totally agree with you. You know, forget, you know, talking about buying. We're not buying links. You know, this is, as you said, rightly so, this is about genuine engagement.
Exactly.
More on that. Let's just quickly take a look at one approach that we utilize and our clients utilize that incorporates some data in trying to find sites to work with. And so often this begins at a high level with market intelligence and share of voice. So here we can see the UK makeup landscape, and we're looking at the top, the top 15 players within that landscape, the most successful sites based on their organic visibility, the competitiveness of those search terms, etc. If we break it down to category, and this is step 2, okay, by focusing on a category or a niche level, you begin to increase your relevance. And here we're looking at Superdrug, and the category here is lit. They have the largest share of voice. So it stands to sense that from an expertise, authoritativeness, and trust perspective, they score highly, as do Harper's, as do Boots, YouTube, etc. And the next step we use using data again is to analyze their link architecture, drill down on their link profile. And here we can see a snapshot here. And the important thing, I think you'll agree, Sheri, it's not just good enough to look at domain level, but you drill out to category level and then page level. The page is important, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why it's like, you know, it's always great that if you have been engaging with someone for a while and maybe they're not budging, maybe their budget is a little bit too high for you, and you can maybe look and actually like do a deep dive into their website and find like a page that would work really well for both parties. And so like that's not to be ignored. And although it's like it is quite a kind of old school method, but it definitely still works.
I totally agree. And you can actually get some really high authority pages on websites that may actually look lower authority than a big site over here with huge authority that's going to give you a link from a page that's 10 folders down, that's going to give you nothing, and we'll charge you more for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then here we go. So we're actually now looking at sites that are linking in this case to Superdrug, and we're ranking these. You can rank by trust flow, by citation flow, and this really gives you an indicator of how authoritative and trustworthy pages are. And I've highlighted one there because I like the name, Vanity Claire. I see what she's done there.
Yeah,
it's nice. And you know, it's an authoritative site. So you know, so what we're doing here is we're trying to find a blog or a site that represents our brand and our objectives, and there it is. And I think you'll probably agree with this. You know, the big question to ask is, does this site align with your core values? Is that something that's true?
Oh, absolutely. That's I think the bottom line. I think that especially if you've got someone who's in your team doing outreach, you need to make sure that they actually care about where the site, what we're placing and where. Like when you have these really like irrelevant site placements, it just makes you, and it'll make your client wonder why, and like it just looks messy. And so it's in everyone's best interests, and that's like it kind of leads us on like perfectly to what we're going to be chatting about later. Is it's all kind of comes down to the person who's actually doing your outreach, because they need to be proud of what they're doing, and if you are putting your website in these random, if you're putting your website in these random websites, it's not really something that the client will look good upon or yourself. So yeah, it's about protecting your own reputation as well.
100%. And we're just about to talk about who is doing your outreach. And before we do that, I mentioned that it's not just about domain level authority. Page level is super important, and that's why you need to actually look at the authority, the value of the page that is providing you the link. Okay, this matters as much, if not more, than the domain itself. You know, you need to look at how many other links are there coming off that page, because that's going to lead to dilution. Okay, so enough of that. Who is doing your outreach? How important is it, Sheri?
Literally the most important, I would say, within the whole of the outreach cog. Like, it's quite surprising the amount of non-communicators who end up in this position within companies. And I think it's obviously because maybe that person has some SEO knowledge, but at the end of the day, the task at hand doesn't need to have like the SEO knowledge. The person needs to be a communicator. They need to be a negotiator. And also, most importantly, I feel for the most effective performance rate for outreach is that they should actually be an authoritative voice within the field in which they're talking about. And so that's why it's quite a good like kind of side hustle to kind of get influencers in. So if you are working with primarily like, you know, the drinks industry or hospitality, there's so many different influencers and bloggers for every niche, and they are constantly establishing relationships, like, you know, constantly meeting and chatting about like exciting new things all the time. And so really it's about finding this right person and then marrying them with someone who has that SEO knowledge, which is basically what we've done at McGarry Fashion. I work alongside my right-hand man, Ari, and he basically helps me with finding all of the accurate sites. He exactly what we went through there, like if there's certain pages that are great, what websites are that we should chase. Then we use a grading system so I can understand what websites will move the needle slightly quicker. So we kind of go by a traffic light system. And so I tend to the really high authority, like I do individual emails to them personally and look at their Instagram and do a couple of likes and comments and like really engaging with these high authority, because if they're the ones that are going to make the most impact to my client, then they're the ones I'm going to spend the most time on. And so then not only does it work well because they take notice that I'm actually taking a personal approach, but then also I've created a new relationship for further clients as well. And especially knowing that maybe they might only have like 5K followers on Instagram, but we know that their website is absolutely shit hot.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about that yesterday, and you mentioned Ari quite a few times, so it's clear that, you know, you have this great relationship with the SEO expert. You don't need to be that, which means that you can be an authentic expert in outreach. Okay, so I've already learned something. They don't have to be an SEO person.
Yes, and so really it's about, before you even start emailing, you really need to figure out what is the focus of what you're talking about. What is your main USP? And I know that is such like a kind of generic thing to say, but the amount of times that I would get emails like, and it would start off with, oh hey, I would really like to tell you about this brand. Here's this brand. I'm going to tell you all this information about the brand. Oh, and here's this really cool thing that they're doing, and I'm going to put it at the bottom of the email.
Yeah.
And so although that I can see that their purpose was they wanted to tell me about the cool thing, but they blabbered on for about 3 paragraphs about the brand, and I don't care. And so it's like, what is your focus? Exactly. Put it into 2 sentences.
Okay.
Done.
Good.
Once.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Once you've found your focus, like, and those goals have been defined, it's why are you getting in touch with them? And so obviously in this case we're talking about SEO, but like the reason why I'm saying why is that, like, so this could be if we're taking one of our clients like Gant, for example, the why would be, so we have these forever pages like the shirt guide, which is like, you know, something that will always perform quite well for us because it's got so many like great pieces of information to share. So there's a difference between when I'm getting in touch with a brand about like, here's this really key like piece of information that we have on our website which will be really helpful to your readers. We've got all these videos and different assets that you could use. So that's like, you know, a bit of a more long-standing piece. Whereas if I'm like, oh, millennial pink is trending, you know, here's all the millennial pink pieces from Gant. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, what is your purpose? Is it a quick throwaway thing, or is it this is going to be on your page and this is going to bring you a lot of traffic to your page? So why?
Yeah.
Then it's the research, and that's when I kind of go back to Ari and say, like, you know, and why this color coding really helps me, because when it comes to the templates, like when it's like we go gold, green, blue, red, orange, red, and so when it comes to orange and blue, I can do orange, I can do a larger template, blue slightly smaller, green I don't do templates, which leads me on to our next slide: formulas, not templates.
yeah, this I'm interested in. So tell me, what about templates? Do they work? And do you have one?
I would say it's a strategy, not a template. Personally, I hate templates because templates are so easy to spot. I've had a lot of, especially since COVID and everything's came around, the amount of like templates who are trying their best to be personable, it just makes things really cheesy. And like yeah, but you don't actually care. I'm just another number to you. And so even when you're doing your templates, there is a really easy way for you to do mass emailing, but on a more personal level. So what I tend to do is once I'm given my list of targets, I then look at each website and I put it into different categories. So whether or not they are like fashion, lifestyle, what am I going to be pitching them to? And so once I put them in their different folders, I can then see how many people are within each like group, and then start the quote unquote template from there. Now from that, I take this strategy. And so the first thing is what I do is I want to let them know who I am, because I also am an authority voice. So it's an authoritative voice talking to an authoritative voice. So like, hi, I'm Sheri, forever yours Betty. And so although it's something that a lot of companies used to like hate, like they would want me to have a Sheri at McGarry Fashion, like, you know, specific profile to show. Like that's like the anti-2020 goals, because everyone's all about authenticity. So it's just like, you can't have a fake shop front. It just looks bad for everybody. So introduce myself. So, and then I'm like, hey, I'm forever yours Betty. Like I've seen your website, I've seen your Instagram, blah blah. And then I'll actually, like, you know, use examples as to why I think they're great, but not in a way that you're like, you know, going overboard, but just like compliments are free.
That's a fine line though, isn't it?
Yes. Usually I would always go about the best go-to, and what I always get the best compliment about is either talking about my how I'm authentic and my tone of voice is great, but like not in a sentence like, we like your authenticity and tone of voice. It would be like, this post was great, I love how direct you were. And talk to them like a human. I don't use, I write my emails, you might have seen within my emails that like within running up to this, I write emails the way how I speak. I don't have a phone voice, a work voice. It's just Sheri. That's it. That's what you get. So
that's true.
It's very much that's what people quite like as well, because you're not this like, again, robotic, computerized, because that's what people are used to. And I think it's that whole thing of like, when you see something that's not the familiar, it makes it stand out.
Yeah, awesome. So let's talk a little about this. You say deliverables. Tell me about this.
So when you're saying, as soon as you can say that you need a link, they're just going to say, what's your budget? So that's why it's best to work within their content and make suggestions of natural ways to exist within their original content. So if they do a Friday roundup, like, you know, you could use that. Or if they do, like, you know, on a particular day, they make a particular post, you can have that. You can also give them example paragraphs as to how that would maybe fit into a past episode. Like, you know, oh, if you add this paragraph into that one, that would actually, like, you know, add so much to the piece. Or you could add this video from our shirt guide, or you could do this. And so it's giving these examples as to how you can make their content better, and then go, that's a good idea. That's basically what you want to do to avoid the budget. But then obviously it's still like, you know, people are getting more, like, people ask for budget a lot quicker these days. And so if all else fails, like, you've got to, if they just keep on hitting you with budget, literally what I do is I am so honest and open with them. I literally say, look, there's no hell and high water that I will ever get that for you, ever. It's not, oh, I'll go talk to my team and I'll come back to you, and then you don't even do that, and then you come back with like, I have £20. Like, which has happened to me so many times. People give you that false hope and like, oh, I'm going to go talk to my finance team, and you know that there is no such thing as finance team, because it's some random person like wherever in the world, like, you know, on their templates, and then they come back with some, like, you know, if I've quoted £250, and then they come back and like, no, 20. And so it's just a bit of a slap in the face. So I usually just go straight in with like, you know, nah, I know you said that, that'll never happen. In a more realistic world, this is what I could offer you. Could that ever be something that you could, like, perhaps be interested in? And then they'll just come back yes or no. And when they say no, a few of them have, since COVID happened, I have now circled back to those people who said like, no, you know what, it's still a bit too low for me. And I'm like, is it still a bit too low for you now, hun?
Yeah.
Still a bit too low?
You mentioned one yesterday. You've been trying to get through to them for about 3 years.
3 years. 3 years, and I finally got it.
Yeah, wonderful. What a refreshingly honest approach. And talk about rate cards. You know, how do you up your response rate and not that rate card? Tell us about this.
So basically, you need to be super brief. If you are sending more than 3 paragraphs, then it probably will just get skimmed. None of the information is going to get taken in. So literally go in, introduce yourself, be brief, say exactly what you're looking for, and then if they don't come back your second time going in, like, be again even briefer. Keep it to 2 sentences. Hey, I saw like you have maybe you didn't see my email about X, Y, and Z. It's again introducing myself, and again I'm kind of like taking the 3 points that why they should get back to me. I'm like, number 1, I'm talking about this cool thing that you should hear. Number 2, hello, have you not looked at my profile? I'm the same as you. Listen to me. And number 3, oh, it's been a week. Don't follow up until at least a week has gone by. And then when it comes to the 3rd time, I'd say just be careful with it, but really take an individual approach. I would never ever schedule templated 3rd approaches. I tend to like more keep notes of who, like how many times I'm getting in touch with someone and all that. But really, it's a time that you can either use humor, or you can go in around like going in and actually like looking at their Instagram, looking at the website, and then sending up a follow-up 3rd personal email and saying, hey, I saw these posts have went live this week. I think that would work so well with them, blah, blah. And you're really, again, reinforcing the fact that you're a human, you're interested in their content, and you're watching them.
Yeah.
And that would tend to get some sort of response.
And you said something yesterday I thought was really interesting. I asked you, what's the best day to send out an email or a follow-up? And in my mind, I wish we had time for a poll, but we don't. I was thinking Friday, but you said that's a no-no.
Oh, never a Friday, never a Monday. Okay. If you don't want to end up at the bottom of the piles, Tuesday, Wednesdays are my most successful days for outreach. People seem to be a little bit more in the groove after like Monday's a bit hell, and Friday people are a bit too switched off. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
That alone is a great tip. So in terms of your top tips for outreach, do you want to just take us through that before I finish off, Sheri? We've got about 2 to 3 minutes left.
Basically, my top tips would be just remember that influencers talk. If you are constantly bombarding them with emails or never giving any budget or only ever offering gifting, they will talk, and word will spread fast. Really, really talk to your PR teams and work alongside them. Make sure that the SEO teams are like making sure that all press releases are being optimized correctly whenever they're getting a post sent over for approval for any branding influencers that they're working with, making sure that like, you know, they're getting the information that they need, that like, even if it's a low authority site, but it's a branding exercise, making sure that they've got the correct link and anchor text that will do the best on that site. Making sure that you're not like if there's someone who you're really chasing in some really high authority links, make sure that you're not just emailing and that's it. Like, you go onto their Instagram, comment on their web pages. It is a lot more effort, but it shows a lot better results.
Yeah.
And lastly, just like create really great brand content. Like, think about think outside the box and be inspired by the websites that you're looking at. Look at, like, you know, the great stuff and why you want them to be on that website in the first place, and be inspired by that, and don't just think that don't just try and sell the simple story.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those tips. And just before we finish off, I just want to talk a little bit about you know, measuring uplift. It's super important. Number one, I'd say, you know, try to do some of this in isolation from doing on-page and on-site fixes, so you can actually narrow it down to a campaign. You've got those standard influencer metrics that we all know about: impressions, traffic, engagement, etc. But also, you know, as long as you've got the data, you know, it's time to start thinking about trust and authority metrics as well. Core update movement. Have you benefited from the core update? In other words, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. Have you moved up from a visibility index perspective? And finally, because authority happens at page level, have the pages that have received the links actually increase? Okay, super important stuff. And I think we're pretty much done there. Sheri, I've learned so much. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, not at all, not at all. And if anybody has any questions, yeah, go follow me on Instagram at Forever Yours Betty.
Yeah, I definitely follow Sheri on Instagram. It's an incredible, colorful, well, it's a crazy account. I love it. I love it. And I'm sorry we couldn't see you today in all of your amazing orangeness. But we'll definitely talk again soon. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. And see you in 2 weeks' time.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, Sheri.